So this is another video on the links between Judeo-Christian scripture and Taoism and how they map to physical reality. So Jesus says at one point in the Gospels that he came not to alter the scriptures, alter the law, but to fulfill them. And I'm going to give an example of what he means. So in Genesis, God creates the world in 6 days. Okay, so the creative hexagram in the I Ching is 6 yin yang lines, pure creativity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 days. Jesus fulfills that creation myth with the miracle at the wedding of Cana. So at the wedding of Cana, Mary sees that there's no wine. They've run out of wine. Jesus tells people to take 6 empty jugs and fill them with water. They fill them with water, and then he transforms them into wine. Okay, so the creative hexagram in the I Ching is 6 yang lines. 6 yin lines is the receptive. That's 6 yin lines. Okay, so we have the creator and the created. The creation, the creative and the receptive. So Jesus takes 6 jugs. So rather than just a Genesis story that provides 6 days and instructions for what happened, what the creation myth says that there are 6, gives 6 containers for something to happen, and then talks about the 6 things that happen. But it's not as clear. So Jesus separates them and says, okay, water and then wine, and there's change involved. So I'm going to talk about the 6 things. The standard model of physics holds that there are 4 fundamental forces, and then there are space and time. So the 4 fundamental forces are 2 of them are the strong force, or the strong nuclear force, and the weak force, or the weak nuclear force. Those 2 things govern things at the very tiniest levels. The strong nuclear force keeps atoms and subatomic particles, things like that, together. Okay, it's akin to gravity at a very small level. If you think about the way gravity holds our solar system together, it's like doing that at the atomic level and lower. The weak nuclear force causes decay at that level. So it's radiation and those kinds of other things. So I'm not a physicist, and you can go look this stuff up, but that's the general idea. The idea is that there are 2 forces, the strong force and the weak force, that cause things to either hold together or to decay over time, and begin to emit and emit radiation and kind of fall apart. So holding together, fall apart at the smallest levels. That's these 2 circles. Then there's electromagnetism. So you can imagine like an electrical current right here. Electromagnetism is the 3rd fundamental force. And the 4th fundamental force is gravity, which governs the orbits of the planets. So you see how the yin-yang captures those 4 forces. The strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity. And then you have space and time. You have the space and time that allow those 4, that's where and where those 4 forces will interact. And time is kind of just another word for change, but it's a little more complicated than that. But you have space-time. Space-time, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity embodied in the yin-yang. So what God did essentially is that there was a creative artist type thing that was all alone, which created a copy of itself. That's the water at the wedding of Cana. And because at the beginning of Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, the Spirit of God is hovering, fluttering over the waters. There are already waters. So the waters are representative of God. So God essentially created a copy of itself, and then actually there's kind of a line in the rules for how that self would change over time. And you can see how the receptive hexagram captures the fact that the creation is both less than, but yet different than, and so kind of more than God. So this does not equal this. It's smaller, it's a microcosm, and yet the fact that there's change involved using these four fundamental forces in space and time. That's all of reality is essentially like God's body. You know, when Jesus was at the Last Supper, he talked about the bread was his body and the wine was his blood. So the wine is Jesus, Jesus is God. The wine at the wedding of Cana is God. So you have the idea that all of reality is God's body, and then modified using the rules that God created. You know, you can imagine like a lonely God who wanted to create like an art project and wanted to like tattoo himself and do various other things, makeup and all kinds of other things like an artistic entity would. So basically ended up taking itself, God, and then this basic, very basic model, the four fundamental forces, space and time, and it causes this water and wine, or it could be wine and water depending upon or you know, water and wine. It could be either way. You can play with it a little bit and figure out which one. Both interpretations work, and they both mean slightly different things, but the basic idea is you have the creator and the creation. Genesis says God created things in 6 days. Jesus says I'm going to fulfill that and kind of clarify it with the wedding at Cana. The distinction between water and wine. The wine is not the water, it is more than the water, but also different than the water. So creation is not God, but also in a way it is God. So the fact that Jesus was both divine and human, you can extend that to all of reality. And again, you have the yin yang. Coincidentally, you know, this makes a nice little thing for, nice little analogy for electromagnetism, like an electrical current here. This makes a nice analogy for gravity with the planetary orbit. These two look like atoms for the strong and weak nuclear force. This looks like space, and then you have time, which is kind of this invisible thing. It's change, or you know, you could say space and change, or space time. You know, space time is apparently a thing in and of itself. But so this is one thing, space time, but also different. You know, you have space and you have time. The greatest commandment. Well, I'm not going to go into that. I've already said enough in this video. Anyway, that's just some food for thought.